Yuna sat very still at the small, round table. The chair was comfortable, but she felt stiff. She looked at the empty seat across from her. This was a mistake, she thought. The idea of a blind date felt silly now, and this was not even a normal one. The tea house was called Starlight Blend. It was a quiet place where humans and aliens sometimes met. Soft, blue light glowed from the walls. Gentle music, with sounds like faraway stars, played in the air. It was meant to be peaceful. For Yuna, it just felt lonely. She had agreed to this meeting for two reasons. First, her friends Sumin and Yoonji had pushed her. They said it was time. 2 years, they said. You need to try. Second, it was a cultural exchange. The woman she was supposed to meet, Kaylin, was a Zetharian diplomat. It was not supposed to be romantic, her friends promised. It was just practice talking to someone new. A small step. But now, looking at the empty seat, the step felt too big. Yuna smoothed the front of her simple blue dress. She had chosen it because it was neat and polite. She checked the time on her wrist device. The meeting was set for 7 p.m. It was now 7:07. A Zetharian sense of time was famous. They were never late. To be late was a deep insult. It meant you did not value the other person's time or life. So, as the minutes passed, each one felt heavier. The empty seat was not just empty. It was saying something. It was shouting that she was not important. The human host, a young man with kind eyes, walked over. He looked worried. "Can I bring you more citron tea, Ms. Lee?" he asked softly. "No, thank you," Yuna said. She gave him a small smile. It was not his fault. Her politeness was automatic. A shell she wore well. Perhaps there is a communication problem. The host offered. The ambassador's office confirmed just an hour ago. "It's fine," Yuna said, though it was not. She looked out the window. The city lights were bright. People walked by, talking and laughing. Life was moving. Her own life felt stuck in this quiet, blue-lit room. She thought of her husband, Jihoon. He was never late. He was an engineer. He loved plans and times. If he said he would be home at 6:15, he was there at 6:14, smiling at the door. His punctuality was his way of saying, "You are my priority. You are the most important thing in my schedule." His death had been the ultimate terrible delay. A sudden collapse at a construction site. The medics were too late. The doctors were too late. She had been too late, arriving at the hospital to only hold his still warm hand. He had been delayed from coming home. Forever. And now, this empty seat felt like that same wound. It was a smaller thing, a tiny scratch, but it cut right into the old, deep hurt. The message felt the same. You are waiting for someone who will not come. She decided she would wait until 7:15. Just 8 more minutes. That was the rule her therapist had suggested. Give a situation 10 extra minutes before you decide it is a loss. She sipped her tea. It was cold. Her mind wandered to her twins, Jisoo and Min-soo. They were at her sister's apartment, probably eating too much ice cream and watching cartoons. They were her reason for everything now. They were why she got up, why she worked at the marine lab, why she tried to be strong. They were also why she had said yes to this date. To show them that life moves forward. But this felt like moving backward. 7:12. A group of Trovians, their fur shimmering, walked into the tea house and were seated far from her. Their low chatter was like soft wind. Yuna felt invisible. What was the Zetharian woman like? She had seen pictures. Kaylin was tall, with smooth, amber-colored scales and a graceful crest that rose from her head and down her neck. Her eyes were large and intelligent. She looked strong and calm. Yuna had been nervous but also a little curious. Jihoon had worked on the Zetharian embassy building. He had spoken of their love for perfect geometry and stable foundations. He had respected them. Now, that respect seemed one-sided. The anger started as a small, hot knot in her stomach. It was not just about the weight. It was about the presumption that her time, the effort to get a sitter, the nervous energy, that it all meant nothing. That she was just a human, to be forgotten. 7:14. One more minute. She would be dignified. She would quietly pay for her tea, leave and go home. She would hug her children and forget this ever happened. She would tell Sumin and Yoonji that it was a nice try. But no. She picked up her small purse from the empty chair beside her. She took out her payment card and placed it on the table. The gesture felt final. It was admitting defeat. The empty seat had won. Just as she caught the host's eye to signal for the bill, the main door to the tea house slid open with a quiet hiss. A rush of cooler night air swept in. But it was not the tall, scaled figure of a Zetharian diplomat. Too small. Familiar shapes tumbled through the doorway, their faces flushed with running and nighttime chill. It was Jisoo and Minsu. Yuna's heart dropped. What were they doing here? Where was her sister? A wave of panic washed over the embarrassment. This was worse. So much worse. Before she could stand up and call to them, the children scanned the room. Their eyes found hers, but then darted past her, wide with a mix of fear and purpose. They were looking toward the back of the tea house, near a private hallway reserved for special guests. Yuna followed their gaze. And there, finally, was Kaylin. The dragon woman was stepping out of that private hallway, her majestic form moving with a speed that looked almost like a glide. Her crest was fully extended, a fan of delicate, bony spines, which Yuna knew from her quick research was a sign of high agitation or alarm. She was not calm. She was distressed. The twins did not run to their mother. Instead, they ran straight toward the imposing alien figure. They stopped right in front of her, their small chests heaving. And then, in perfect, practiced unison, they both bowed deeply from their waists. Just as their father had taught them for important greetings, the entire tea house fell silent. Even the gentle star music seemed to fade. All eyes were on the two human children and the startled Zetharian diplomat. Minsu, his voice clear and loud in the quiet room, spoke the words that would break the silence and change everything. Honorable Kaylin, our father is sorry for being delayed. The silence in the tea house was complete. It was the kind of quiet that felt heavy, like a thick blanket. The soft star music had stopped, as if the machine itself was listening. Yuna was frozen, halfway out of her chair. Her hand was still on her payment card. Her mind could not catch up. Her children were here. They were bowing to the alien woman. They were speaking for their dead father. Across the room, Kaylin looked down at the two small humans. Her large, slit-pupiled eyes were wide. Her crest, which had been fanned out in clear distress, now went perfectly still. For a Zetharian, such stillness was a sign of deep, focused shock. The word they used, delayed, echoed in the quiet space in the Zetharian language. The word for delayed was a technical term. It was for machines that broke down, for starship engines that needed repair, for a communication signal that arrived late because of solar wind. It was never, ever used for a living being. To call a person delayed was to call them broken. A thing. It was an unspeakable insult. Yet, the tone of the children was not insulting. It was formal. It was apologetic. The bow was slightly awkward, but the intent was clear. It was a gesture of respect. Yuna finally broke from her shock. She moved quickly, her chair scraping on the floor. Jisoo! Minsu! She hissed, hurrying toward them. Her face burned with a mix of fear and deep embarrassment. I am so sorry, she said, looking up at Kaylin. The alien was much taller up close. Her scales had a warm, metallic sheen under the tea house lights. They are my children. They shouldn't be here. There must be a mistake. Kaylin did not look at Yuna. Her gaze remained fixed on the twins. Slowly, she knelt. It was a strange, graceful motion. Her joints bent differently than a human's. Now her face was level with the children's. The tea house collectively held its breath. No one had ever seen a Zetharian diplomat kneel. Why? Kaylin asked. Her voice was lower than a human's, with a soft, rasping quality. It was not angry. It was intensely curious. Why did you speak those words? Jisoo, encouraged that the dragon woman was not shouting, straightened up. She glanced at her brother, then back at Kaylin. Our Appa taught us. He said if you make someone wait, it's a big deal. You have to say sorry the right way. Minsu nodded, his serious face looking even more serious. He worked on your building, the shiny, tall one by the river. He said your people are very precise. He stumbled on the big word. Precise, Kaelin repeated softly. The word in her own language was a core principle. It meant more than being on time. It meant harmony of action and intention. But Appa is on a trip now, Jisoo continued, as if explaining the most simple thing in the world. A long trip. He's been delayed. So he can't say sorry himself. The meaning settled in the room, layer by layer. Yuna felt a tightness in her chest. She put a hand on each child's shoulder, not to pull them away, but to steady herself. She saw the understanding dawn in Kaelin's luminous eyes. The father was not late for dinner. He was gone. Kaelin looked from the children's earnest faces to Yuna's pained one. Her own reason for being late, which had felt like a planet-sized problem moments ago, now seemed very small. She had been in the private comm room, taking an urgent, sealed transmission from the Zetharian High Council. A trade vote had gone the wrong way. She had spent 20 minutes in a furious, quiet debate, fighting to protect Earth's interests. She had rushed out, her crest flared in frustration, ready to offer the most profound apologies to the human woman for her unforgivable rudeness. She had expected coldness or quiet anger. She had been prepared to formally end the meeting before it began. She had not prepared for this. The children, by using that word delayed, had made a terrible linguistic mistake. But by bowing and speaking for their father, they had performed a different, ancient act. On Zetheria, to complete a duty for someone who has passed was the highest honor. It was called speaking the unfinished chord. Kaelin rose to her full height again. She turned her head slightly to address Yuna, but her posture was different now. The agitation was gone, replaced by a strange, heavy calm. The error was mine, Kaelin said, her voice formal but not cold. A council matter demanded my attention. I failed in my obligation to be present. This breach is mine to bear. Yuna blinked. The alien was apologizing? After her children had just called her a broken machine? No, please, the children. They don't understand. They understand a promise, Kaelin interrupted gently. She looked back at the twins. You're Appa. He was Park Ji-hoon, the engineer for the embassy's western spire. Yuna could only nod, her throat too tight for words. His work was flawless, Kaelin said. The spire passes starlight for our rituals. It has never shifted a micron. She paused, choosing her next human words with care. His teaching is also flawless. You have delivered his message. She then did something that made the host drop a menu. She gestured to the table Yuna had just left. Will you sit? All of you? The delay has passed. We should not waste the time we have now. Yuna looked at the table, at her cold tea and her payment card. She looked at her children, who were staring at Kaelin with wonder. She looked at the empty seat, which did not feel so accusing anymore. It was just a chair. The choice was no longer about a failed date. It was about what to do with a strange, fragile moment that two 7-year-olds had built from memory and a misunderstood word. Okay, Yuna said quietly. She took a small breath. Children, sit with me. She led them back to the table. Jisoo and Minsu scrambled into the large chair next to their mothers. Fitting together in the space meant for one that Kaelin followed and settled into the seat that had been empty for so long. She did not look like a diplomat on a cultural exchange. She looked like a visitor in a very unusual situation, trying to find the right path. The blind date was over. Something else had begun. The quiet of the tea house slowly returned. The star music started again, soft and low. The other patrons went back to their drinks and conversations, but they still stole glances at the strange group. A human woman, 2 wide-eyed children, and a Zetharian diplomat. Lee Yuna felt completely exposed. This was not the plan. The plan was a quiet, awkward drink, maybe some talk about ocean currents or Zetharian architecture, then a polite goodbye. The plan did not involve her deepest personal history being laid bare by her children in the middle of a public place. She watched as Kaelin settled into the chair. The alien moved with a slow, deliberate grace. She arranged the simple folds of her robe, a garment made of a fabric that seemed to shift from gray to blue. Yuna realized Kaelin was giving them all a moment to breathe. It was a kind gesture. "Your aunt," Yuna said quietly to the twins, her mother brain finally kicking in. "Where is she? Are you okay?" Auntie Sumin got a call from work. "An emergency," Jisoo said, using her fingers to count off the facts. "She said she tried to call you, but your communicator was off. She put us in a taxi bot. She told it the tea house address. She said to tell you she's sorry and she'll bring ice cream tomorrow." Yuna reached for her small purse. Her personal communicator was inside, set to silent for the date. She saw 3 missed calls from her sister. A wave of tiredness hit her. So much for a calm evening. "It is secure, the taxi system?" Kaelin asked. Her tone was not critical. It sounded like genuine concern. "Very safe," Minsu answered proudly. "Appa helped design the safety locks for them." He said it as if this fact made him personally responsible. Kaelin's head tilted. "He worked on many things. He fixed things," Jisoo said simply. "And he taught us rules. Rule number 4. If you make someone wait, you steal a piece of their life. You must give a piece of yours back in apology." Yuna closed her eyes for a second. Jihoon's rules. He had a list. Rule number 1 was about looking both ways before crossing the street. Rule number 4 was about time. She had forgotten about the rules. The twins had not. Kaelin listened carefully. "This rule is a very Zetharian in spirit. The concept is similar." She then looked directly at Yuna. Her large eyes were impossible to read, but the intensity was softened. Yuna, I must explain my own failure. I was receiving a communication from my High Council. The matter was urgent and could not be paused. It concerned the trade agreements between your world and mine. I was advocating for your planet's fishermen. Their catch is important to a cultural ceremony of ours." Yuna was taken aback. This was not a brush-off. This was a real, complicated reason. "I see. Thank you for telling me. You are a marine biologist," Kaelin stated. It was not a question. She had done her own research. "Yes. I study coastal ecosystem recovery." "Then you understand the importance of sustainable harvest." The debate was heated. I lost track of the human time measurement. This is no excuse. Only context. Kaelin's hands, which had 3 long, dexterous fingers, rested on the table. "I emerged prepared to offer a full ceremonial apology and release you from this obligation due to my profound rudeness. I did not expect." She gestured slightly toward the twins. "Ambassadors." The host approached the table, looking very nervous. "Can I get anyone anything? For the young ones." The twins looked at their mother with hopeful eyes. The shock was wearing off, and now they were in a cool tea house with a real alien. 2 glasses of honey milk, please," Yuna said. "And would you like something, Ambassador Kaelin?" "Water is sufficient. Thank you." The host scurried away, relieved to have a normal task. "You called me Ambassador. The children called me Kaelin. You may use Kaelin. This is not an embassy room." She said it flatly, a simple statement of fact. "Okay, Kaelin." Yuna tested the name. "And I'm Yuna." She felt the situation tilting, turning into something she couldn't name. It wasn't a date. It was a diplomatic meeting crashed by 2 small civilians. "Yuna," Kaelin repeated. The word sounded different in her voice. "Your children have performed a Keth Varmora." It translates closest to speaking the unfinished chord. On my world, when a life ends with an obligation unmet, a debt unpaid, or an apology unsaid, it is a great weight on the family. For another to voluntarily take that weight and speak the words, it is a sacred duty. It clears the path for the departed. Yuna felt a lump form in her throat. She looked at Jisoo and Minsu, who were listening but not fully understanding. They had just wanted to do what their father taught them. They had seen a person who was late, and they had the tool to fix it, a tool their father had given them. "They didn't know," Yuna whispered. "The truth of an action often lives outside the actor's knowledge," Kalen said. They acted from a place of honor, their father's honor. Therefore, I must ask you a question, Yuna. Yuna braced herself. Yes. May I have your permission to complete the chord? The apology was given, but it was for the wrong offense. They apologized for a father's delay, which is not his to give. The true offense was my delay. The exchange is unbalanced. Yuna was lost. What does that mean? It means, Kalen said, turning her body to fully face the twins, I must thank them and him properly, and I must offer my apology to him, through them. It is how the path is cleared. The honey milk arrived. The twins took their glasses but didn't drink. They were watching Kalen, fascinated. Kalen placed her hands flat on the table, palms down. She bowed her head, not just her neck, but from her upper back. Her crest lowered gently. Park Jisoo, Park Minsu, you have spoken your father's intention. You have shown great courage. I hear his apology and I accept it. Thank you for bringing his words to me. She then raised her head. Her eyes found Yuna's. And to you, Lee Yuna, and to the memory of Park Ji-hoon, I offer my true apology. I stole a piece of your life tonight through my absence. By your mate's rule, I must now give a piece of mine in return. I do not yet know what form that will take, but I will find it. It was the most bizarre, formal, and utterly sincere thing Yuna had ever witnessed. The empty seat was forgotten. The failed date was irrelevant. In its place was a profound, confusing, and deeply human alien connection, built on a dead man's rules and the honest hearts of his children. Yuna simply nodded, because words were beyond her. Okay, she said, her voice thick. Okay. The honey milk was half finished. The twins, their initial bravery fading, were now leaning against their mother, suddenly looking small and sleepy. The excitement of the taxi bot, the tea house, and the dragon woman was catching up with them. Lee Yuna felt the same tiredness, but her mind was racing. Kalen's words hung in the air. I must give a piece of my life in return. What did that mean? Was it a Zetharian metaphor, or a real promise? She watched the alien across the table. Kalen was sitting perfectly still, her eyes half closed. She seemed to be thinking, or maybe listening to something only she could hear. Yuna knew she should leave. It was late. The children needed bed. This had gone far beyond any sensible limit. But something held her in the chair. Maybe it was the way Kalen had spoken to the twins. She hadn't talked down to them. She had addressed them like real people, honoring their strange mission. Yuna hadn't seen anyone, not even family, treat the children's connection to their father with that kind of serious respect. Everyone else wanted them to move on, to be happy, to stop talking about Appa's trip. Kalen had listened. We should go, Yuna said softly, not moving. Kalen's eyes opened fully. Of course, the young ones require rest. She paused. May I ask a question before you leave? It is about Park Ji-hoon. Yuna nodded, a flicker of caution in her chest. You can ask. The western spire of the embassy. It is aligned to catch the first light of the star you call Vega on our highest holiday. The calibration was very complex. There was a problem during construction. A support beam was off by a degree. Your mate found the error. He did not shout or blame. He showed the foreman the math on a simple piece of paper. He said, the stars won't forgive a mistake. Kalen's raspy voice was quiet. Is this story true? It is told among my staff. Yuna's breath caught. She had heard that story, but from Ji-hoon's version, which was funnier, about a grumpy foreman and a lot of coffee. Hearing it from Kalen as a piece of passed-down lore was different. It made him part of something bigger. It's true, Yuna said, her voice a little rough. He came home that night and said he'd spent the whole day arguing with geometry. He said geometry won. A low, soft sound came from Kalen. It was like a slow release of air. It took Yuna a moment to realize it was a Zetharian laugh. Geometry is a stern master. He understood this. Kalen looked at the twins, who were now listening again, interested by the sound of their father's name. He gave you good rules. Rule number 7, Minsu mumbled sleepily. Always double-check your math. A vital rule, Kaylin agreed solemnly. Yuna made a decision. It was impulsive and she would likely regret it. Would you like to see a picture of him? With the children. She didn't know why she was offering. It felt like part of this strange exchange. Kaylin bowed her head slightly. I would be honored. Yuna pulled her communicator from her purse. She pulled up her favorite image. It was Jehun at the beach, squatting down with a twin under each arm. They were all laughing, squinting in the sunlight. He looked happy and solid, his hair messy from the wind. She turned the screen to show Kaylin. The alien leaned forward. She looked at the picture for a long time, her head tilting just a little. She studied Jehun's face, the children's smiles, the background of waves. He looks like a man who valued foundations, Kaylin said finally. And joy. A rare combination. She leaned back. Thank you for sharing this. The host appeared again, presenting the bill on a small tray. Yuna reached for it, but Kaylin's long fingers were faster. She placed her own payment chip on the tray. Please. The delay was mine. The tea and the honey milk are my responsibility. You don't have to do that, Yuna said. By human custom, perhaps not. By Zetharian custom and by your mate's rule 4, I must. It is a very small first piece. Kaylin looked at her. May I ask one more thing? Where is the place in the image? The water. It's the East Cove near Somaport, where my research station is. It appears peaceful. It is. Yuna gathered her children, gently shaking them awake. Come on, little ones. Time to go home. The twins slid out of the chair. They looked at Kaylin, not sure what to do now. Should they bow again? Say goodbye? Kaylin solved the problem. She stood up. Then, to Yuna's shock, she brought her closed fist to the center of her chest. A formal Zetharian gesture of respect and farewell used between equals. Park Jisoo. Park Minsu. Safe travels to your nest. The twins, sensing the importance, copied the gesture as best they could, putting their small fists over their hearts. Goodbye, Kaylin, Jisoo said. Yuna just nodded, too full of strange emotions to find a formal goodbye. Thank you for understanding. The understanding is mine to earn, Kaylin replied. Good night, Yuna. Yuna shepherded the children out of the tea house and into the cool night air. A family taxibot was waiting at the curb, summoned by the host. As she buckled the sleepy twins into the back seat, she looked back through the tea house window. Kaylin was still standing by the table. She was not looking at her communicator or calling for her own transport. She was just looking at the now empty chairs, her crest lying flat against her head and neck. She looked, Yuna thought, not like a powerful diplomat, but like someone who had seen a ghost and was deciding what to say to it. The taxibot pulled away, merging into the river of city lights. Yuna leaned her head against the window. The evening had been a disaster. It had been painful and embarrassing. And yet, it didn't feel like a loss. It felt like a door had cracked open, not to a new romance, but to a room she hadn't known existed. A room where Jehun's rules were a kind of law, and where his memory was a living, respected thing. In the quiet taxi, Minsu stirred. Mom? Was that okay? Did we do the rule right? Yuna reached back and squeezed his foot. You did it perfectly, she whispered. Appa would be so proud. And for the first time in a long time, she felt that pride too, warm and solid like a foundation. The blind date had been empty, but the night was not. The days that followed were normal. Yuna went to her marine lab at the Somaport research station. She checked water samples, wrote reports, and watched the slow, steady return of seagrass to the East Cove. The twins went to school. They did their homework and argued over the video screen. But the normal days felt different now. There was a quiet hum in the back of Yuna's mind. It was the memory of a Zetharian's voice saying, I must give a piece of my life in return. She tried to forget it. It was a strange thing said on a strange night. Diplomatic people said dramatic things. It didn't mean anything. A week after the tea house, Yuna was at her desk, labeling samples. Her assistant, a young man named Tae, poked his head into her office. Yuna? There's, someone here to see you. Not from the university. Yuna looked up. Who is it? Tay's eyes were wide. It's the Zetharian ambassador. Kaylin. She's at the front gate of the station. Security called. Yuna's heart did a funny jump. She put down her sample jar. Okay. Thank you, Tay. She walked out of the low building, onto the wooden walkway that led to the security gate. The research station was small and simple, right on the edge of the cove. The air smelled of salt and pine. And there, standing just outside the gate, was Kaylin. She was not in her formal robes. She wore a simpler, gray tunic and leggings. She looked out of place against the backdrop of fishing boats and storage sheds, like a statue from a future era placed in the past. Yuna approached the gate. The security guard looked relieved to see her. Kaylin, this is a surprise. Kaylin bowed her head in greeting. Yuna, I hope my visit is not an intrusion. You spoke of this place. I wish to see it. It's not an intrusion, Yuna said, and found she meant it. She tapped her code into the gate lock. Gomein. It's not very impressive. A place of learning is always impressive, Kaylin said, stepping onto the walkway. She moved slowly, taking in everything. The cry of the gulls, the slap of water against the dock pilings, the distant sound of a boat engine. Yuna led her toward the main lab building. Was there something you needed? No, Kaylin said simply. I am giving a piece of my time to see the foundation of your work, to understand the context of the life I borrowed from. She stopped and looked out over the cove. The afternoon sun sparkled on the water. It is very peaceful here. Your mate's image did not do it justice. They stood in silence for a moment. It wasn't awkward. It was like Kaylin was truly listening to the place. Would you like to see the lab? Yuna asked. If it is permitted. Inside, the lab was a cheerful mess of equipment, tanks, and maps. Tay and another researcher pretended very hard to be busy, watching the ambassador with sideways glances. Kaylin showed no interest in the expensive scanners. She went straight to the large observation tank where Yuna was growing patches of seagrass. She knelt by the tank, just as she had knelt for the twins. She watched the green blades sway in the current of the clean, circulated water. This is your work? Kaylin asked. Part of it. The cove was damaged by an industrial spill years ago. We're helping it heal. This grass is important. It shelters young fish, cleans the water, holds the seabed together. A foundation, Kaylin said, her eyes following the gentle movement. Yuna felt a small spark of professional pride. Yes, exactly. Kaylin stood. On my world, we have a similar life form. It is crystalline, not organic. It grows in our silica seas. It also stabilizes, cleanses, and shelters. We call it the silent engineer. She looked at Yuna. Your work is the same. You are an engineer of life. No one had ever described her job that way. Yuna liked it. Thank you. Kaylin's visit lasted only 20 minutes. She asked a few precise questions about the grass, about the timeline for the cove's recovery. She did not mention the tea house or Jihun or the children. It was a visit about Yuna's world. As they walked back to the gate, Kaylin stopped again. The young ones, Jisoo and Minsu, are they well? They are. They told their whole class about meeting a dragon woman. They are now famous in the 2nd grade. That low, soft laugh again. This is good fame. She paused. I have a request. It may be inappropriate. What is it? The rule. Rule number 4. Would you allow me to learn it? The exact words your mate used. I would like to record it for our cultural archives. It is a profound piece of philosophy, spoken simply. Yuna was stunned. Jihun's silly, heartfelt rules in a Zetharian archive? Of course. I can send it to you. Thank you. Kaylin reached the gate. She turned and faced Yuna fully. I have taken more of your time. I will go now. The PCIO grows. I will find its shape. And with another respectful bow of her head, Kaylin turned and walked down the gravel path to where a simple, dark vehicle was waiting. Yuna went back to her lab. Tay immediately rushed over. What did she want? Was it about the coastal zoning laws? Is there a problem? No, Yuna said, looking out the window at the empty path. She just wanted to see the seagrass. That evening, at home, Yuna told the twins about the visit. She came to your work? Jisoo asked, amazed. Like a field trip? Yes, like a field trip. Minsu thought hard. Did she check her math? Yuna smiled. I think she did. She's very precise. She tucked them into bed later, and as she turned out the light, Minsu's voice came from the darkness. Mom, is the dragon woman our friend now? Yuna sat on the edge of his bed. She thought about the question. Kalen wasn't a friend in the way Sumin was a friend. This was something else. A connection built on a mistake, a memory, and a shared, unexpected respect. I think, Yuna said carefully, she is someone who remembers Appa with us. And that is a very special thing. Oh, Minsu said, as if that explained everything. And maybe, Yuna thought as she kissed his forehead, maybe it did. The empty space at the tea house table was gone. In its place was a new, quiet presence, standing at the edge of her world, looking at the sea. The visits became a pattern, but not a regular one. Kalen did not come every week. Sometimes 2 weeks would pass, sometimes 3. She would send a simple message first. I have a piece of time this afternoon. May I visit? She never came to Yuna's home. She visited the lab twice more. Once, she brought a small, clear crystal from her world that pulsed with a soft, slow light when placed in salt water. A silent engineer, she said, for your study. It now sat on a shelf in the lab, a quiet, alien companion to the seagrass tanks. But mostly, Kalen visited the twins. The first time it happened, Yuna was nervous. She agreed to meet at a public park near the school. Kalen arrived, again in simple clothes. She did not try to play with them. She simply walked with them along the path by the duck pond. Jisoo and Minsu, their initial shyness gone, chattered at her. You're tall, Minsu stated. Yes, Kalen agreed. Does your head feel heavy? Jisoo asked, looking at her crest. Not usually. It is part of me. Like your ears are part of you. Can you swim? I can. My people evolved in shallow seas. My scales are waterproof. The questions were endless. Kalen answered each one with a calm, factual patience. She asked questions in return. About school. About their favorite foods. She never asked about their father directly. On the third visit, the conversation changed. They were sitting on a park bench, watching people. Minsu was kicking his legs. Appa liked this park, Jisoo said, out of nowhere. He pushed us on the swings really high. Kalen was silent for a moment. Did he have a technique for the perfect swing? She asked, her tone serious. Minsu nodded eagerly. Yes, rule number, 12. For maximum height, you must pull with your legs at the very top and lean back at the very bottom. I see. A physics rule. Kalen looked toward the swing set. Was he a good teacher of swings? The best, Jisoo said, her voice a little softer. Then the swings are a good place to remember him, Kalen said. It was not a sentimental statement. It was a simple fact, delivered with the weight of a truth. Places hold echoes of people who loved them. Yuna, listening, felt a knot inside her loosen a little. No one else talked about Jihun like this. Others said, he'd be so proud. Or he's watching over you. Kalen just acknowledged the echo. She made it sound like a real, natural thing, like a shell holding the sound of the sea. The next time, Kalen did something different. She met them at the park, but she carried a small, flat case. She opened it to show the twins. Inside, on a padded lining, were 2 objects. One was a polished piece of dark metal from the Zetharian embassy spire. The other was a common human steel bolt. Do you know what these are? Kalen asked. The shiny one is from your building, Minsu said, and the other is a bolt. Like from Appa's toolbox, Jisoo added. Correct. This bolt, Kalen said, pointing to the human one, is from the original, flawed support beam, the one your father found. This piece of verdix, she pointed to the dark metal, is from the new, correct beam. They were fused together during the repair. They are now one object. My engineers gave this to me. I give it to you. She held the fused metals out to the twins. They took it carefully, their small hands holding the cool, heavy object. It is a reminder, Kalen said. A mistake was found. It was corrected with care and precision. The result is stronger than the original design. It holds a piece of your father's attention and my people's gratitude forever. Yuna's eyes filled with tears. She turned her head to wipe them away. This was the piece of her life Kalen was giving. Not grand gestures, not expensive gifts, pieces of time, pieces of attention, pieces of memory, made solid. The twins treated the fused metal like a treasure. They kept it on their shared dresser. Weeks turned into a month. Yuna realized she was no longer waiting for the other shoe to drop, for Kalen to disappear, her debt paid. This was something else. A slow, careful building of a bridge. One afternoon, Kalen visited the lab when Yuna was alone, finishing up. She watched Yuna pack her bag. You are tired, Kalen observed. It's been a long week. Yuna admitted. You carry many weights. Your work, your young ones, your memories. It's just life, Yuna said with a small shrug. On my world, Kalen said, looking out at the darkening cove. When a structure is built, it is tested, not just for strength but for resonance. We tap it. We listen to the sound it makes. A good structure has a clear, clean tone. A troubled one has a discordant hum. She turned her large eyes to Yuna. You, Yuna, have been tested by a great weight. I hear no discord. I hear a clear tone. It is a quiet tone, a sad one, but it is true. You are a well-made structure. The words were so unexpected, so utterly strange and precise, that they bypassed Yuna's defenses completely. She didn't cry. She just stood there, feeling seen in a way she hadn't in years. Not as a widow, not as a mother, not as a scientist, but as a person who had not broken. Thank you, Kalen, she said, her voice very quiet. Kalen just bowed her head. The bridge was not made of words of comfort. It was made of fused metal, of questions about swings, of observations about resonance. It was being built, beam by beam, visit by visit, in the space where a blind date had failed. It was a foundation for something nobody had planned. A family of a most unusual kind, learning how to hold the echo of a man who had loved rules, and who had, in his own way, built this too. The weather grew warmer. The seagrass in the East Cove grew thicker, a lush green carpet under the clear water. Lee Yuna's life had found a new rhythm, one that now included the quiet, scaled presence of Kalen. It was a Saturday. Yuna had promised the twins a trip to the cove, to the exact spot from the picture she had shown Kalen. They packed a simple lunch. As they walked down the familiar path from the research station to the small, crescent-shaped beach, Yuna saw a figure already there, standing at the water's edge. It was Kalen. She wore the simple gray clothes. She was perfectly still, watching the waves roll in and slide over her bare, three-toed feet. The twins didn't hesitate. They ran ahead, their shouts lost in the wind and surf. Kalen, you're here. Kalen turned. She did not smile, Zetharians didn't, but the scales around her eyes relaxed. Jisu, Minsu, your mother said this place was peaceful. She was correct. Yuna walked up, the picnic bag in her hand. I didn't know if you'd come, she said. She had sent the invitation on a whim, a simple message. We're going to the cove on Saturday. You are welcome. You offered a piece of your place, Kalen said. It is a significant gift. They spread a blanket on the sand. The twins immediately ran to the water, looking for shells and skipping stones. Yuna and Kalen sat watching them. The sound of the waves was a constant, gentle roar. I have news, Kalen said after a comfortable silence. The story of what happened in the tea house has reached my homeworld. The story of the delayed father's courtesy. Yuna winced. Oh no. Are you in trouble? No. The opposite. My people are fascinated. They are archivists of meaning. They see a profound human truth in the event. A child's love making a bridge where adult protocol failed. Kalen watched Minsu lift a large, dripping shell for his sister to see. The story is being told as a fable, about how the most important connections are often built from broken pieces and honest mistakes. Yuna thought about that. A story traveling across stars, about her children, about Jihun. It was strange, but it felt right. I think he would have liked that. He loved a good story. I have something else, Kalen said. She reached into a small pouch at her side. She pulled out a data crystal, a small blue shard. It is a recording of rule number 4 and the other rules your children have shared with me, translated into my language. They are in our cultural archive now, listed under human wisdom, the Park Jihun protocols. Yuna took the crystal. It was cool and smooth. She felt a swell of emotion so strong it stole her breath. Jihun's little rules, his way of being a father, were now a permanent record on another world. His voice, echoed through his children, would literally never be lost. Thank you, she whispered. Do not thank me. He built the bridge. Your children walked it. I am merely a witness who recorded the journey. Kalen looked out at the sea. My assignment on Earth is long. I will be here for many more of your years. This arrangement, these visits, do you wish them to continue? Yuna didn't need to think. She looked at her children, who were now talking animatedly to Kalen, showing her a crab they had found. She looked at the fused piece of metal from the embassy, which Jisoo had insisted on bringing and had placed carefully on a rock. She felt the crystal in her hand. Yes, Yuna said. This isn't an arrangement anymore, Kalen. You're part of the echo now. The word echo made Kalen's head tilt in recognition. She gave that soft, airy sigh of a laugh. A good echo. A clear tone. They ate their lunch. The twins taught Kalen how to make a sandcastle, explaining the critical rules for moat digging and tower building. Kalen applied his Etherian engineer's precision to the task, much to their delight as the sun began to lower. Painting the sky in oranges and pinks, the twins grew quiet. They collected their things. Jisoo picked up the fused metal piece from the rock. She held it for a moment, then walked over to Kalen. For you, Jisoo said, holding it out. Kalen knelt. It is your treasure. We want you to have it, Minsu said, joining his sister. To remember Appa and us. And so you have a piece of here at your home. Kalen looked at the object, then at the two serious faces. She closed her long fingers around it. She brought her other hand to cover theirs. I will keep it with great honor. It will be the centerpiece of my home. I will tell all who see it the story of the engineer, his children, and the delayed apology. She stood, placing the metal in her pouch. They walked back up the path to the research station, where Kalen's vehicle waited. The goodbyes were different now. They were not an ending, but a see you soon. As the car drove away, Yuna stood with an arm around each twin. The first stars were coming out. Mom, Jisoo asked, leaning her head against Yuna's side. Is this what family feels like? Even if it's a little weird. Yuna looked at the darkening cove, at the peaceful water that was slowly healing. She thought of a broken beam made strong, of a quiet tone in a tested structure, of rules traveling between stars. Yes, my love, she said, kissing the top of Jisoo's head. This is exactly what family feels like. The blind date had been empty. It had been a shell. But life, like the sea, had filled it with something unexpected and real. It had filled it with the living memory of a father, the honest hearts of his children, and the respectful, scaled woman who helped them listen to his echo. Together, they watched the night come, no longer waiting for anyone, but simply being there, on the solid ground they had found.